This video demonstrates how to create your header as a component for your website and make the menu link between your various pages. So I'm going to delete the one I've already created and show you how I did this from the beginning. So create a rectangle box, and I'm going to make mine 100 pixels high, and the width is 1920, and I make sure that it is aligned to the left and the top. And you can also see that here in your X and Y values, they're both at 0. I'm going to change the fill color to my light pink, and you should have your styles all set up in your site, so you can see here all my color styles. And I'm going to rename that over in my layers to header box. Okay, so next I'm going to bring in my logo, and I'm going to directly copy it from Illustrator so it comes in as a vector rather than an image, because that will mean that I can change the colors for the hover state. So Control C to copy, go back to Figma, and Control V to paste. It comes in as a frame, which is what we want, because a frame means we can create links. So I'm going to rename that frame logo, and in here it's come in as a group for all the pink elements, and then I have my background drop shadow, and that's now means I can change the color. So I'm going to make mine white for the normal state, and the idea is when you hover that can go brown. I can now resize this, so hold down Shift, and I'm going to resize it so that it fits within this column, outside of my 10 columns. That is because I want to fix the header and all the content is going to scroll underneath, so I don't want the text to go underneath my logo. Okay, so next creating the menu text. So create a text box, and I simply write the word home or hello for that hello page. I duplicate that, and I'm going to write gallery and merch. Now my settings are kind of perfect at the moment. That's because I just did it previously. But what it is it is Quicksand, which is the typeface that I've used for my titles. And I have set the point size to 18, which is bigger, slightly bigger than my paragraph style, which is 17. And it is all caps. So remember, the settings for the all caps are found under the type settings button here, and you can see it is set the case to uppercase. So when I type, it's always going to be uppercase. Okay, so I'm also going to change the color to white. So that's looking good. Okay, so next, if I just put these all out of alignment, and we're going to use auto layout to make sure that everything's perfectly spaced and we can control the spacing. So we select all of these components and right click and say add auto layout, and now you can see that all the elements are evenly spaced and aligned, and there's a new box here that's come up that said auto layout, and the spacing between the items we can control. So if I just drag that, you can see it gets bigger or smaller. So I'm going to make all my spacing 40, or maybe a touch bigger, 50. You can also control the horizontal padding of the whole box. So I'll show you what that does. You can see that adds space on either side, and there's also the vertical padding which adds it to the top and the bottom. Auto layout also stretches when you type. So if I was to type gallery of images, you can see that the text box is stretching with the content. So slightly different from the other frame down there. This comes in with these 3 lines, and I'm going to rename that menu. Okay, I'm going to position mine outside of the columns again. Nice. Okay, so let's present that or push play. And that's always important to do this because you can start seeing the scale of the type at this 1920 by 1080 resolution. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is create each of these text boxes into a frame. So to do that, you just select the individual text box, so you can just also select it here and right click and say frame selection. Nothing happens, but over in the layers you can see we now have a frame, and if you open that, the text is inside. So we rename that frame hello, the gallery, frame selection, and rename that gallery, and do the same for the merge. If I was to push prototype now and select one of those frames, you can see it's got this little plus sign. That means I can now link from it. If I was just to draw another text box, and we're in prototype and I'm selecting it, there's no little plus sign, which means I can't link from this. But if I was to frame the selection, you can see now I can create these links. That is why we need to create each of these text boxes in its own frame. Okay, so now we are good. So it's all done. We're going to now create this as a component. What a component does is it means that we can duplicate the component, but it becomes like a style guide where if you change the main component, it will update on all the pages. So I'm going to show you what that does. So I'm going to select my rectangle box, my logo, and my menu. And I'm going to right click and go all the way down to create component. And now you can see component 1, and it's got this kind of diamond window shape. So I'm going to rename this header parent. And I'm going to copy out parent 1 onto a sheet up the top, which is going to be called my component sheet. So like we did our local style sheet. So to do that, I'm going to create a new frame and just drag out. I'm going to make it 1920 pixels wide. And the height doesn't really matter. I'm going to make mine 600. And rename this component sheet. So that's going to include all the components for my site. So the first one is this header. So on my hello page, I'm going to duplicate this one, Control D. And the one I want to take out is the one that's the parent one, so it's the one with the diamonds. The child one is just an empty diamond, so I'm going to rename that one header for the hello page. And the parent one I'm going to drag out and put on the component sheet. So now on my component sheet I have the header parent, and on the hello I've got the child. Just moving this one up a touch. Okay, so the next thing is to now copy the child onto each of the other pages. So select the child and go Control C. Select my gallery frame and go Control V. If I select the whole frame, it will place it exactly in the same spot. So on this gallery page, I'm going to rename this one Gallery. And again, select the merge frame and Control V. So in the merge, I'm going to rename this one Merge. Now I want to change the active states for each, so that when we are on the Hello page, the Hello text is highlighted a different color from the rest. This can be also an underline or sometimes a box. The whole box is colored differently, but I'm going to just change my text. So we go to my Hello page and I just need to open up this so that I can find the actual text. And I'm going to change the color to my dark brown. And on the gallery page, I'm going to do the same. And the same for the merge. Oh, my brown. Perfect. Okay, so that's looking great, and you can see that I'm just going to demonstrate something here. So on my component sheet, this is the parent one. If I was to change the color of one of these elements, you can see that it updates on all of the children, and that is because the parent controls the child, the changes for the children, but when we change the child, so I'm going to change this one to a different color, it doesn't change the parent or any of the others, and that is because the child doesn't control the parent controls the child. So it's almost like a style guide. So with the styles, if you change one of these colors, it's going to update across all of the instances that you've used it throughout the site. Okay, so we're going to change our logo to create a hover state for it. So on the component sheet, select the logo and go Control D to duplicate it. With the duplicated, so the first one we're going to just call logo normal. That's the normal state. And the duplicated one, we're going to say logo hover. It's the hover state. And the hover one, we're going to drag outside of the actual component sheet. So there it is. It's actually all the way outside in its own little frame. And now I'm going to change the color of this background drop shadow to my brown. Nice. Now I'm going to create a link between this one to this one so that when the user hovers over it, it changes color. So I select the logo normal, go to prototype, and you can see the little plus sign, and I'm going to drag this to my logo hover. In the interaction details, I'm going to change it to while hovering, open overlay, overlay manual. And you can see when I changed it to manual, it actually filled what it's going to look like, and it's in the exact right spot. And it's going to happen in an instant. You can change this to dissolve or move in, so it will move in from one of the sides. So I'm going to just play that. So I was just hovering over it, and you can see that that's working perfectly. So that's done. Okay, so next I'm going to create the links between each of the frames to the correct page. So I'm going to go and select the hello text, the hello frame, and link it to the hello page. It's going to be on click, navigate to, happens in an instant, So that's looking good. I'm going to do the same with the gallery and the same with the merge. So now these are all linked up. We'll go and test that they work. Push play. Okay, so click on gallery. We're on our gallery page, merge, and you can see that the page that's active, it's highlighted brown, and back to hello. One thing that we didn't do is fix the header. So you can see when I scroll, it's also scrolling away. So we want to fix that. So back in the site, I select my whole child and go to design, and we just tick fix position when scrolling. And you can see in my layers, I now have a fixed section and a scrolls section. So I do the same for each of the headers on each of the pages. Now when I play that, if I scroll, that is now fixed and the content is scrolling underneath. So we're done. Okay, so the last thing that I want to show you is that when you get all the way to the bottom, I'm going to have an arrow. This arrow, if I click it, it's going to link me back to the top of the page. So let's go and do that. So the arrow, I also have created an Illustrator file. I've also provided that to you in the OneDrive, so you can just simply copy and paste it in. But you can also think about creating even a button that just says back to top. Anything that works in with the style of your site. So for mine, the style works because the curved arrow works with my type. So all it is a frame. If I open it up, you can see that's the vector file there. And I've created mine just to have a dark brown color. So back to prototype. I'm now going to select the little button link and link it all the way up to the top. And in the interaction details, it's going to be on click, scroll to, back to the top, the header hello. And in the animation, I'm going to say animate because I don't want it to happen in an instant. It's going to actually animate up the top. And I'm going to just slow this down. This is quite fast, so I'm going to make mine 1200 milliseconds. And push play. Okay, so let's go down to the bottom, scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. We click the button and now you can see it goes back to the top. And it's got a lovely ease, it slows down as it gets back to the top, and that's just part of the Figma settings. See, it says ease out. You can change these too, and you can also edit that. So let's move it back to 300 milliseconds so I can show you that. See how fast that is? So that's why I change it to 1200 milliseconds. Now if at any time you want to go and edit that, you just click the link and you can come in, these interaction details pop up and you can come in and change that. So now when we hit prototype, you can see this is what your site should now look like. One last detail is that when we are in here, in one of these other pages, the logo should always link the user back home. Currently we don't have that set up. So let's go and do that. So we click on that frame and link that back home. And all the details should be fine. So let's have a look at that now. Hit R to refresh. Go to one of the other pages. And now that's taken us back home. So we now have this logo linking home. We have our menus all linking correctly to the correct pages. And we have the button to take us back to the top. The next component I'm going to create is my footer. So a footer in a website often has social media links or an address or contact information. My one is simply just going to have my name and the title, which is the Hero website, and the date. I also have a little Bertie element here, and the footer just is a nice way to finish the content on each of the pages. So I'm going to delete the one that I've already created and create it again. So all I did was create a rectangle box, and the height was 100, and made that brown and renamed that footer box brown. I then created another box which was just my pink one, and the height was 30, and I named that footer box pink. Change the color, and then you can see that it's not quite snapped, so make sure it's positioned correctly, and the same here. Okay, so bringing in my little bird, Control copy, Control V, and I've positioned it on that pink line, so it looks like it's coming out of that line. Because it's come in as a vector, again, I can just change the color of that if I wanted to, and rename that Bertie footer. For my text, I just draw a text box, and I'm going to write Alice Moore, and it's come up as my menu text, so you can see here the settings I used for my menu. Hero website, and this line is just a vertical line, and 2022, and I'm positioning mine to the edge of that last column. Okay, so everything is done. So now I can select all of those elements, and I create a component. So right click, create component, and I'm going to rename it footer parent. And like last time, I duplicate that, Control D, and rename this one footer hello, and I'm going to drag the parent onto my component sheet. So now on my hello frame, I have my footer in the scrolls, and on my component sheet I have it placed at the bottom here. So now I can duplicate my footer onto each of my pages, and just make sure that you rename them. Okay, so on our component sheet so far we've got our header and our footer, and in the next video I'm going to show you how to create the buttons which are going to be used on your merch page.